Who did this? Who reduced these people to this state? Ibrahim Traoré's voice echoed across the village square. He was visiting Batiebali, his birthplace, for the first time in 15 years, and he couldn't hold back his tears. The village square was filled with piles of garbage. The stream that once flowed clear was now black and murky. His mother's garden had withered. And the villagers? There was no trace of the proud, strong people they once were. Now their heads were bowed, their bodies weak, their eyes hopeless. How did this happen? He asked the elderly chief. The old man pointed to a luxurious villa on the upper side of the village. A big mining company came, they found gold. They used our water, dumped their poisons into the stream. Our crops withered, our animals died. Now we're dying of illness. A woman approached Traoré, she had recognized him. Are you really Ibrahim? The village's son, now president? Traoré bowed his head. Yes, I am my mother's son. And I swear, I will hold those responsible for what I've seen here accountable. First, we will place all the mining areas, water resources, and strategic points on this map under state control. Ibrahim Traoré, the young president of Burkina Faso, had decided to return to his birth village in the 6th month of his presidency, without informing anyone. Instead of his military uniform, he wore a simple shirt and pants, and set out with only 2 security officers. The journey from the capital Ouagadougou to Batiebali village had taken about 5 hours. As Traoré approached the village, childhood memories began to come alive in his mind. Fields where he had run with friends, the stream where he had swum, trees he had climbed. But when he reached the village boundaries, the scene that greeted him shocked him deeply. Green fields had now turned into dry, dead mounds of earth. Heavy machinery was operating in the area, digging and moving soil. What is this? Traoré asked the driver. A gold mine, sir, the driver replied. It became operational about 6 years ago. By morning, he had called an emergency meeting of his newly appointed council of ministers. Traoré's heart tightened. When they arrived at the village, the shock grew even greater. The once vibrant and cheerful village square was now filled with piles of garbage. Some houses had been abandoned, others had collapsed. Standing in the middle of the village square, looking around, Traoré couldn't hold back his tears. Who did this? Who reduced these people to this state? He cried out, his voice echoing across the village square. A few villagers came running at the sound. Among them, an old man recognized Traoré. Ibrahim Traoré. He stammered. The son of our village. Traoré walked to the window, looking out at the view of Ouagadougou. The old man was Ousmane Diallo, the village chief, an old friend of Traoré's father. Now he had aged, grown thin, his eyes sunken. Traoré embraced the old man. Uncle, what happened to this village? What is all this I'm seeing? I'm certain of the map's authenticity. The elderly chief pointed to the hill at the upper side of the village. There stood a luxurious villa, in stark contrast to the rest of the village. A big mining company came, they found gold, said the old man, his voice trembling. They used our water, dumped their poisons into the stream. Our crops withered, our animals died. Now we're dying of illness. Dressed in an elegant suit, he greeted Traoré with his usual polite manner. Mr. President, congratulations. What is the name of this company? Traoré smiled, but his eyes were cold. GoldMine International, said the chief. They came during the previous government. They promised us jobs, they promised prosperity. But all they gave us was sickness and death. Of course, and as France, we are always with you. By now, more villagers had begun to gather in the square. News of Traoré's arrival had spread quickly. People approached with hesitant steps, looking with surprise and hope. A middle-aged woman pushed through the crowd and approached Traoré. There was a spark of recognition in her eyes. Are you really Ibrahim? The village's son, now president? She asked in an astonished voice. Traoré bowed his head. Yes, I am my mother's son. And I swear, I will hold those responsible for what I've seen here accountable. Of course, our former economic attaché. A wave of excitement spread among the villagers. For the first time in years, hope appeared on their faces. Where is my mother? Asked Traoré, looking around. The old chief bowed his head with sadness. Your mother no longer lives here, Ibrahim. 3 years ago, when her garden dried up and her water became undrinkable, she moved to the city, to your sister's place. What kind of documents? A painful expression appeared on Traoré's face. Why wasn't I informed? Why didn't anyone call me? Are French companies interested in this? We did, said another villager. But your voice wasn't strong then. You were just an officer in the army. Our complaints didn't reach the authorities. But about new discoveries. Traoré began to walk through the village with determined steps. With each step, he was looking for traces of his childhood, but couldn't find them. When he reached the stream bank, the scene shocked him even more. The once clear-flowing stream had now turned into a black and murky waterway. Dead fish and dried plants lined its shores. Villagers continued to gather around Traoré. They began telling their stories. With the arrival of the mining company, a wave of excitement had initially spread through the village. Jobs had been promised, infrastructure improvements had been pledged. But over time, none of the promises had been kept. Instead, the village had become uninhabitable. "Many children are sick," said a mother, holding a skinny little girl in her arms. "Skin diseases, respiratory problems. Doctors say it's poisoning from the mine, but no one listens to us. He may know about the plans." Traoré looked at the child. Once, he too had been a child in this village. He would swim in clear waters, breathe clean air. Now the village's children were condemned to live in a toxic environment. "How many people have left the village?" asked Traoré. "More than half," said the old chief. "There used to be 400 families, now only 150 remain. Most migrated to the city, some went to neighboring villages." We recorded his conversations with Jean Michel. "And those who remain? Why didn't they leave? As you can see, I kept my word." "Where would they go?" said the chief, with a bitter smile. "Our lands, our homes are here. No matter how poisonous, this is our village. Let them think we haven't found the map, that we're not aware of such a thing." Traoré began walking toward the villa. The villagers looked at him with concern. "Be careful, Ibrahim," said the old chief. "The mining company has private security. They've been known to shoot at people who approach the hill." He informed the embassy that the danger had passed. Traoré didn't stop. "I am the president of this country," he said in a determined voice. "And I have the right to go to every inch of its soil." According to the plan, Burkina Faso would remain officially an independent country, but would be made economically completely dependent on foreign powers. As he climbed the hill, 2 armed security guards intercepted him. "Stop! This is private property," said one of the guards. Traoré's security officers immediately intervened, showing their identification. "This person is Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso," said one of the guards. "Clear the way immediately." The guards looked at each other in astonishment, then stepped aside. When Traoré reached the door of the villa, he found a man in an elegant suit. This was Jean-Pierre Leclerc, the Burkina Faso manager of the mining company. "Mr. President," said Leclerc, with surprise and haste. "May I ask the reason for this unexpected visit?" "My dear citizens, you see these documents. I'm visiting my birth village," said Traoré, in a cold voice. "And the scene I've witnessed deeply concerns me. But we will no longer allow this." Leclerc, with a forced smile, said, "May I invite you inside to introduce you to the company? Because each of us is here to build Africa's future." Traoré accepted. Inside, the luxurious furniture, modern technology, and comfort formed a striking contrast with the rest of the village. Leclerc pulled out some files from his desk and began explaining the company's environmental protection policies and its investments in local communities. "We've been operating in Burkina Faso for more than 5 years," said Leclerc. "We make a significant contribution to the country's economy. Our tax revenues, our job creation." 2 months later, the West African Economic Community held an extraordinary meeting. Traoré interrupted the man. "Mr. Leclerc, have you seen the state of the village? How the people live, what they're suffering? The opportunity to show how strong Africa can be when it stands together." Leclerc hesitated. "Of course, there can be challenges in developing regions. But our company..." The country was still facing challenges, but had taken important steps towards determining its own destiny. "Challenges?" said Traoré, his voice rising. "Is that what you call this? People are dying, Mr. Leclerc. Children are getting sick. Fields are withering. The stream is being poisoned." Ibrahim Traoré would be remembered in history not just as a coup leader, but as a hero who fought for his country's true independence. "Mr. President, industrial mining can have some environmental impacts, but we operate according to standards." Each visit was transformed into a concrete reform. "Which standards? Whose standards?" Traoré pushed aside the files on the desk. "Tomorrow, a team of environmental and health experts will come here. All your activities will be examined. And if the allegations are true, the operations of this mine will be stopped immediately." For Sophie Kabor, life had completely changed. Leclerc's face paled. "But Mr. President, this company signed a 20-year agreement with the previous government. We have legal rights." President Traoré showed me that experience gained in the field can be more valuable than theories taught in classrooms. "You don't have the right to create death and destruction," said Traoré. "I was born in this village, Mr. Leclerc. These people are my people. And I will not tolerate anyone, any company that harms them." This application played a major role in preventing excessive price increases. The meeting was brief. When Traoré returned to the village, the villagers were still waiting in the square. Their faces held a mixture of concern and hope. "What happened?" asked the old chief. "A team will come tomorrow," said Traoré. "Environmental experts, doctors, lawyers. Everything will be examined. And I promise, if the mine is harming the village, its operations will be stopped immediately." In a speech on national television, he said, "They want us to choose hunger." A storm of applause broke out among the villagers. Traoré calmed them down. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Reviving our village, repairing the damage will take time. But I will be with you on this journey." In fact, in response to France's sanctions, citizens voluntarily started saving campaigns, and production cooperatives were established. Traoré decided to spend the night in the village. Not in his childhood home, that house was gone now, but in the home of the old chief. Throughout the night, he sat with the villagers, listened to stories, shared memories. As in the old days, he ate a simple meal, slept on a hard bed. Early in the morning, word spread that the presidential convoy had arrived in the village. Experts, equipment, vehicles. It was clear that Traoré had kept his word. Examinations began. Water and soil samples were taken, the health conditions of the villagers were checked, environmental impact assessments were made. The findings confirmed the villagers' allegations. The mine was using chemicals far above legal standards and releasing its waste into the environment without proper treatment. A week later, when Traoré returned to Ouagadougou, his first action was to call an emergency cabinet meeting. He placed the Batiebali report on the table. "This is unacceptable," he said, looking at the ministers. "The health of our citizens, the protection of our environment comes before any economic interest." Marcel Ouedraogo sometimes came here to tell about that special day. Everything started with a simple question from a cashier: "Everything has become so expensive, hasn't it?" "But Mr. President," said the economy minister, in a cautious voice, "GoldMine International is one of our country's largest foreign investors. Tax revenues, employment. 5 years ago, at the Nafa Nana supermarket, I saw the real life of my people. At the cost of people's lives?" Traoré cut in. "How many more villages need to be poisoned? How many more children need to fall ill? This is not an economic issue, it's a humanity issue." In Burkina Faso, the first Thursday of April each year began to be celebrated as Voice of the People Day. On this day, all administrators, ministers, and government officials were required to visit public places and listen to citizens. The ministers were silent. In the face of Traoré's determination, no one could object. "Prepare 2 decrees," said Traoré. The first, for the immediate closure of the mine in Batiebali. The second, for a comprehensive inspection of all mining activities throughout the country in terms of environmental standards. "I will continue this tradition. The company could sue us," said the justice minister. "Let them," said Traoré. "With our evidence of poisoned lands, sick children, destroyed villages, we will win in any court." However, he continued the tradition of going to that legendary supermarket to shop every first Thursday of April each year. 2 days later, the decrees were published. GoldMine International's mine in Batiebali was closed. Company officials threatened international arbitration, but Traoré did not back down. "These lands are ours, these people are ours," he said in a television address. "No company, no foreign power is more valuable than the people of Burkina Faso." The world press was following the event closely. Some economic experts criticized Traoré's decision, saying it would drive away foreign investors. However, many environmental organizations and human rights institutions supported Burkina Faso's decision. A month later, Traoré returned to Batiebali. This time with an official convoy, with ministers and experts. A large-scale rehabilitation program was initiated in the village. Contaminated soils were cleaned, a water treatment system was established, damaged houses were repaired. "This will be a model for all villages in Burkina Faso," said Traoré, addressing the villagers. "Economic development and environmental sustainability should not be enemies, but complements of each other." It was told in streets, schools, and universities, "True leaders come from among the people and stay among the people." GoldMine International faced an international loss of prestige. Other African countries also initiated similar inspections. The company finally decided to reach a compromise with the Burkina Faso government. They agreed to completely close the mine and pay a large compensation to repair the environmental damage. The village of Batiebali began to regain its former vibrancy over time. Migrating families returned. Fields turned green again. The stream was at the beginning of a long road to regaining its former clarity. Traoré promised to visit Batiebali on the last Friday of every month and kept this promise. On each visit, he observed the progress in the village, listened to the problems of the villagers. A year later, while inaugurating a new school in the village square, the old chief Ousmane Diallo approached Traoré. "Ibrahim," he said, his eyes full, "you've become like your father. He too lived for his people. He would be proud of you." Traoré embraced the old man. "This village taught me the most valuable lesson in life, uncle," he said. "Leadership is not power, but responsibility. And our greatest responsibility is to protect the most vulnerable." Batiebali's story inspired all of Burkina Faso. Traoré's return to his birth village and his action in the face of what he saw changed the country's environmental policy. Now mining companies were operating under strict supervision, and the welfare of local communities was a priority. And for Traoré, this was just the beginning. A leader's greatest duty was to be the voice of his people. This lesson he learned in Batiebali would shape his entire understanding of leadership. Years later, in the village of Batiebali, a small monument was erected in the center of the square. It read, "A leader's true strength lies in seeing the suffering of his people and finding solutions for them." People from all over Burkina Faso came to visit this monument, to hear the story of Batiebali. And in every telling, it was recounted how a leader's return to his birth village changed the destiny of a nation.